Awesome.
All
So
yours.
welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Rami and myself and the rest of the AEM champs, the 2024 class are very happy to welcome you here. This is our official 2024 kickoff session. Woohoo! Um, as I was saying earlier, this class is a lot larger than the inaugural class of 2022. We grew from like a little over, uh, you know, uh, below 20 members to more than, 100. Uh, Something like that. So we have a lot more folks who do these office hours, and we hope that these are going to be informational and useful to you. The goal of these office hours are to be very interactive. So feel free to use the chat feature in the chat window here in the Zoom application, and feel free to ask questions. Do let us know where you're calling, where you're joining us from, and if you have any specific experience, or later on, I'm going to ask you to let us know what kind of topics you would like to see in this 2024 sessions. But let's go ahead and move to the next slide here. This is our agenda for today. We want to go over what are the AEM Champion office hours. Then we're going to talk about what we did last year. We're going to do a review of 2023. We're going to look at what we have for 2024, the topics that we think are relevant for the community. And obviously, we're going to ask for your feedback and what you would like to see, so that we make these office hour sessions more useful for you. We're going to talk briefly about the 2024 summit coming up, March 25th through the 28th. For anyone who's joining in person, we'll be glad to see you. And we're going to be hosting the IDEA Smart Bar, the AEM IDEA Smart Bar at the summit. So feel free to stop by and see us. A lot of the AEM champions are going to be there, and then we can answer any live questions that you might have for us. Again, this is a very interactive session. This is a kickoff session. We don't have anything specific that we're covering today, but just wanted to kick off the office hours, and then wrap it up with looking at what's our next session, office hour session going to be, so that everyone is aware of what's coming up. We're going to try to do these monthly, but then we haven't figured out again how this is going to play out with the different regions. So we might be able to pull off bi-weeklies, or depending on schedules. But the main goal is to have at least once every month. So we're going to keep.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna cut you off really, really quickly, Greg. So we are recording this and it will be shared with everybody. So you don't need to record it or panic.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry,
thank you.
keep going.
That sounds good. I see a lot of movement in the chat already, so that's great. Thank you. So we'll go over the AIM Champion office hours. These are, again, monthly Ask Me Anything webinars. We're serving the AIM community. We're a bunch of clients, partners, Adobe partners, practitioners in general. So we're just like any of you who are joining us here today. The topics change monthly and are relevant to a bunch of different users, from like content authors to practitioners to architects, developers. And you, as an AEM practitioner, can pre-submit questions to us. We will go over the chapters, and you can communicate to us via our chapters page, AEM Champion Office Chapter. You can also reach out to Robert Solby, who's the AIM program manager here, and we can put that information in the chat for you. But yeah, this is a very open. We want to learn what challenges you're facing, what the wins that you might have, any solutions that you might have to share with the community, and all that good stuff. So our panel consists mostly of practitioners and developers and architects and partners who are immersed in the AEM platform. So this is a a big community. Do subscribe to the chapter so you're not notified when the next event is scheduled, and we're going to go over that, how it works. But yeah, the panelists that you see here, again, they're just because this is a kickoff. We were much more agile and smaller team last year, but this year we wouldn't need probably 5 slides to add here for the AEM champions. So just for looks, I have the slide here. Rami's on the call as well, myself here. I'm Greg, and I'm a web content product owner for T. Rowe Price on the East Coast of the United States. I guess, Rami, did you want to introduce yourself as well?
Do I ever? So the name is Rami El Gamal. I am currently trying to admit everybody in, so I might sound distracted, but I have a blue button that I have to keep clicking on. I am a director in Rene Consulting. We do everything Adobe from AEM to Commerce, et cetera, et cetera. 2-year AEM champ running, so it has been fantastic last year, and I'm pretty sure it'll even be greater this year. And thank you all for joining. Yeah, that's it. Back to you, Brett.
Thank you, Rami. Yeah. And Brett is I have his information, his avatar here, basically, just because he's the leader of the pack. He's also coming from last year, from the 2022 class. I don't know if he was able to join us in the call today, but yeah. We aim to have different regions do these, so you will see different names and information here in the panelists in the future. So it could be any champion with like a guest speaker, or it might be just us, going over the topic of the month, the session of the month. So also feel free to scan these QR codes, so you can go to our office hours website. And then if you wanted to go back to see the playlist, yeah, you can scan the second QR code here to the right, so you can see what happened during last year, the topics we covered. You can watch those videos on demand if you find that useful. And okay, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing, but we can open the conversation talking about last year's topics. So our first session last year was in March 2023. I went back to the playlist and I was looking at what we did, and it was about content fragments. This is always a huge topic for Adobe Experience Manager Champion office hours. We went over experience fragments as well, GraphQL, AEM as a cloud service, cloud manager, tips and tricks and best practices on the tools we use in the AEM tools that we use every day. We went over AEM workflows, headless CMS, and I think one of the last sessions, I think our last session for 2023 was September or October, and we just went over like overall what tools we use, and like what kind of challenges we're facing and looking forward to 2024. So we pick it up a few months later, and we have a new group of folks who are joining us. If any of the AEM champs wanted to introduce themselves, again, there's a lot more of us in this call, but feel free to jump in and say a few things about you, and introduce yourselves, because we might see you in different office hour sessions as well. So yeah, if you prefer doing this in the chat, we could do this as well. As far as we're this year's topics, what we're trying to cover, we're trying to add a few more things about topics that most of us use, and we did kind of a survey between the Adobe Experience Manager Champions, and we talked about what we would like to see. So topics we'll cover, and they're not like set in stone, but we can always switch. But we were thinking about providing updates on and doing sessions on AEM forums. Caching and performance was a great suggestion. Adobe Experience Platform, AEP integrations, any AI, artificial intelligence use cases with AEM, and continue with updates on Cloud Manager, Adobe Experience Manager, the cloud service, edge delivery services, and those kinds of topics. But again, feel free to participate in the chat, see what you would like to see, so we can create those sessions for you and make them as interactive and as informational as possible.
And just to add really quickly, the idea, what we're trying to do in general is there's typically two different avenues when we're doing these office hours. There is very business focused, the people that go fast time to market, I don't know, AI when it comes to content, all this good stuff, which is very marketeer-like. There's also the technical approach to things. How do you cache? How do you use sling models? What's new with edge delivery system from the perspective of development? How does it help? How does it help with rapid development? We will try to change these office hours to sort of cover both in a sense, so people can always be sort of connected to the content that we're delivering. So again, please feel free if there's any topic, whether it's technical, so it's something as simple as I do not know how to write a servlet in AEM, all the way to I have a problem with my business when it comes to permissions. Because we have a collection of folks that have been using AEM and other products within the Adobe realm for years and years and years, and they've seen the technical side of things, and they've seen the marketing side of things as well. Back to you, Greg.
Yeah. Great points, Rami. Yeah. We in the past we had folks who left these office hour sessions with like concrete, steps of what they need to do for the challenge that they were meeting, and that's the purpose of these office hour sessions. We also like I personally, and I know others are doing this too. We go to the Adobe Experience League community, and if you don't if you don't have the habit of doing this, go to the Adobe Experience League online, and you'll see a lot of questions, answers, discussions, and a lot of relevant interaction with what we do on the day-to-day business, and how we run AEM platforms for different implementations. It can be on-premise and managed services and cloud. So we scan those questions a lot of times, and if something like looks very like a hot topic essentially, or we want to dedicate time to doing an office hour session, that's what we'll do. And I think the advocacy folks in Adobe are also talking about having other discussions and side discussions after these office hours, and have coffee breaks and things that are going to show up in the Adobe Experience League community online. So we're going to have a lot more avenues to delve deeper into provided solutions and put our minds together essentially to help out with anything that's a challenge currently. I see a lot of the AEM champs in the chat as well. So all the names that you see there in the chat, these are folks who are members of the 2024 AEM class now. So and then again, a lot of us are going to be in Adobe Summit. So in the end of March. So that's something to talk about as well. We have something called Idea Bar at the summit. Last year, I think, was the first time that I saw it for AEM champs. I think there's also analytics champions and Marketo champions who are attending the summit. So they also have like their own bar areas. But for us, for Adobe Experience Manager Champions, I can't stress how helpful it was for a lot of people to stop by and talk to folks like Rami, Brett, Martin Noble, who was visiting coming to us from the UK, A lot of folks had questions about, like front end stuff. How do I use like React? How do I, like implementations and integrations of AEM that, um, you have to do a lot of research and you have to know your stuff to know how to set it up. And within minutes, folks at the Idea Bar and the summit were able to provide a guide, first steps on how to set that up for them. And that is very valuable because you don't have to, you know, second guess yourself. You don't have to. You have a guide of how to go about your challenges that you might be facing.
I
And
do
again,
want to add, it wasn't always in a few minutes. We've had a couple of cases where it actually got a little interesting where I think it started with one person. I think it started with you, Greg, actually. And we started pulling each other because once you see, so when you do come to the summit and you do meet up with us, you'll find different experiences. So it started from, I think it was you, Greg, for a couple of those clients, and then it came to me, and then we started drawing stuff on a piece of paper, trying to architect a couple of things.
yeah,
All in all, it's a good technical experience. It's a good social experience as well, but not
yeah,
always in a few minutes. I
yeah,
disclaim.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, to me, it was a blast. It felt like a few minutes, but you might be right because at one point I think we started a conversation and it was daylight outside, and then all of a sudden I go outside and it was dark. Um, no, I'm kidding, but um, yeah, this is a very interactive, you know, um, I guess feature of Summit. And last year it was the year of like AI announcements, artificial intelligence announcements, and Firefly and all that good stuff. So now I think having a year with all those features and implementations and any integrations that we can talk about, this summit is going to be even more exciting. Looking forward. By the way, the Adobe Summit sessions are already published. If you go to the Adobe Summit website for 2024, 200 or 200 plus sessions are posted up there. So feel free to, um, if you're registered virtually or being there in person, add it to your schedule. And that's another idea for these office hours. If you have specific topics that relate to those sessions, we can follow up after summit. We're going to have a lot of material to cover. So yeah, mark those down and we're going to go over those with you. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention again is we do have a larger group of folks who are AM champions, and we're coming from a lot of different industries. I work in the financial industry right now. Rami's a partner. He's doing a lot of, and he's a certified architect, so he has a lot of clients he's working with. So always ready to provide his take on how he goes about solving problems and meeting challenges for his clients. So yeah, we just have a lot of different backgrounds and experience in a lot of industries. So that's the bottom line. And I guess we want to make sure that you have questions that are pre-submitted as well. That's a point that I wanted to make. So at this point, I guess I could share like how to go to like the chapter page. You can see the chapters page here, right, Remy?
It is still sharing. It hasn't come up yet. I don't see it.
Okay.
Can anybody see the screen? I can't. Now it's back to
We're
you.
seeing you now, Rami.
Yep.
All right. Looks
You
like I'm.
should click the screen that you wanted to share, because Zoom is a weird one if you're not used to it. When you click share, you have to pick what you want to share. You might be waiting for that.
I'm showing that I'm sharing here. Let me stop sharing for a second.
I want to add that we've tested this before the call started and it worked.
Yeah.
Live demos, they never work.
Of course.
Of course. You know?
I'm gonna hold shift and share. Oh, I'm sharing two like different windows. So. All right.
That's it.
Okay.
We can see it.
Yeah. For some reason, I had to hold shift and share two different windows. So if you go to chapters, that's something, you know, like that might be you might not be aware of. If you go to AEM-AUGS, that's user groups at adobe.com, you can select chapters, and then you'll see every chapter that exists on the globe. We are champion officers here. Like I said, you can join events from here. You can also leave whenever you want to. This is the event that we're having here, but you can see upcoming events in this section of the website. You can load past events, and you can get in touch with us as well. You can view the profiles of the AEM champs here. Some of us will be appearing here periodically. This is going to change because we're also updating this site. But yeah, you can contact any of us via the contact us button down here. So you could always reach out to us to see, you know, to talk about what kind of events and topics you would like to see from us. I think what time? Yeah, we're close to the hour here, but as far as like chat items, I don't know. Are you
You
seeing?
were going to tell us how to submit questions, maybe?
Yeah. So what we can do is you can either submit your questions and your ideas in this chat here, but what we could do also is what we have is during sessions, we capture those questions in a spreadsheet, and we use those for to answer those questions before an office hour session starts. So when we send out the invitations to these events, using the contact us button, you could submit the question. And also there's a form that goes out, which, you know, depending on the topic, like let's say we're probably thinking about doing something in the AEM forums in the next office hours, and I know Angela is like an expert. She's a new AEM champion, so we would have like a form sent out to or included in the channel, or you know, any participant who registers will be able to submit their question, and then we use that spreadsheet to go over all the questions that were submitted. A lot of times, you know, folks might not have questions, and they might just want to see an overview of the topic of AEM forms for some of them who are not using it, for example. So you can go in the chat during the session and submit your question at the time, like where do you use AEM forms? What are the best use cases for AEM forms, for example? What kind of information can you capture with AEM forms, and how are AEM forms interacting with you know, other applications? So those kinds of things, those are questions that we can definitely answer. And as always, we're glad to take your questions. Pre-submitting your questions happens like when you register for the event, and we'll send out like a link, a URL link to see that form.
And
Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's perfect. The only thing that I would add is, to your point, we're going to have a form per session. So we will decide on a session, right? So based on the topics, and I think you'll take us through some of those topics that are coming up as well. But the idea is we want session-specific questions, things to discuss, things to be able to answer. However, we will have an open form. So a form that essentially you can submit at any time going, here's another idea or here's another question that I would like to discuss. Again, these office hours are based on being sort of open, unofficial. We sit down, we discuss, we try to find solutions. There's no magic wand involved. It's really from my experience, here's what I've seen, and here's how that could help you. Keep in mind that I won't call it a continuation to Experience League, but it's a different take on what you would see on Experience League, because a lot of the times you go into Experience League and it's very type-based, where you type your question, you wait for an answer, then you type question, and then you wait for an answer. We're trying to make this a lot more interactive. So yeah.
Yeah, and I see a couple of questions in the chat. So the questions like that nature, that's what we're gonna collect and make sure that we address those in the sessions that are the relevant sessions that are related to that topic, as cloud service or AI related sessions. So yeah, and we're going to have dedicated sessions, not only for North America, but like European, AEM practitioners as well as APAC. So different time frames that, if this time frame does not work for you, obviously you can join at your, best time that you can join these meetings. But also like if you register for an event, you can watch on demand, right? So that's another option.
In the meantime, for the sake of actually having questions in there with thumbs up, do you mind if I answer those, or maybe we'll have a discussion. We'll show you a demo of how this works.
Yeah.
So champs or anybody else on the call, I'm gonna start, and then we'll pass it on. Just raise your hand, and we can go in and see different ideas. So question number one that came up here. Essentially, you're using the sync tool to push content. I just want to make sure that was the first question on that list. You're using the sync tool. So you're on AEM as a cloud service, and you're syncing. I think actually it's on AMS as well. And the problem is you have relative links. Well, relative links are not a problem because they'll attach to the domain. But what about absolute? I've actually seen this problem happen multiple times. And the question number one is, why is it they have absolute links that should be pointing to the domain that you're on, right? So I would argue that and I've seen this happen in the past because the link checker is not doing what it needs to be doing. So in some cases, it's like, okay, heck, just put in the link. It's going to work. The link checker is not going to remove it. So fundamentally, I would start there. Aaron, you have a pretty good answer in there too, where it's like, okay, let's start looking at post. Now, keep in mind that you said use Groovy. Groovy is not cloud compatible. So if you're on AMS, you can write your Groovy script. It'll go in and do magical things. But once you go on the cloud, you're going to lose that. And you have to start thinking maybe through like a listener or a job or a scheduler or something that would go through these links and change them. In theory, you can even manipulate using resolver rules, where you can have different resolver rules for the tiers that would substitute the link. You can put that logic as an externalizer right into your Java code, where you can go in and just have a find and replace. I think you're solving the symptom, not the problem, though, because the problem will go back to why do you have absolute links? If you can define that problem and solve it, then the rest of it could become easier. But I think you have a couple of really good solutions in there that you could do. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure, does that answer the question before I move on to the next one? I'm gonna take that as a yes, and I'm just imagining everybody out of all 60 people with their heads nodding in agreement.
Yeah. And I'm already doing these, by the way, Rami, and I'm just
fantastic.
in case.
I think I would take 10 minutes just to give people a feel. And again, other champs on the call, please feel free to hop in. Question number two, is it recommended to move to the latest archetype? Yes. The short answer to that is yes. There is multiple reasons for it. First of all, if you look at something like the dispatcher, especially if you're going from AMS or on-prem and you're going into AMS Cloud Service, a lot of the stuff for the lack of a better expression, when you go into AEM as a cloud service, it's like herding cats, right? When you're on AMS or you're on-prem, you did whatever you want. There was no standardization, especially on-prem where you have full access to Dispatcher and you can go in and do whatever you want. When you go into Amazon Cloud Service, everything is very standardized. So that's for the dispatcher. That's for using stuff like UI front end. Your dependencies are up to date. It's mentioning the SDK rather than your Uber jar. I haven't said the phrase Uber jar in a very long time. Tells you something. So it's these things I would definitely recommend going into the latest archetype. And I'm just I would, yeah. Now, here's one thing that came up before. So with the UI front end, and this happened to me a couple times where, so the client libs, I've seen the client libs being done in about 3 or 4 different ways, right? There are people that will include the client lib of components within that component folder, right? And I remember way back in the day, like you're thinking CQ 4.4, that was sort of the standard, right? You would have component blah, you'd have the CSS and the JS for blah right in there, and that becomes a client lib that then gets embedded into a different client lib that holistically creates the whole part of the site. And then it changed to where we started separating, right? You had a client lib that's called, let's say, site client lib, and that would go under the client libs folder. And that would include all the CSS and the JS, maybe name the files based on the components. And then comes UI front end. So a lot of the times, if you have a client that is having approach 1 or 2, you had people come up and they would go, well, do we want to move to UI front end? I don't think it's a need right now. If they have these client libs right with the components, it's still functional, right? As long as you're doing your proxying properly, as long as you're serving them properly, life goes on. So is it mandatory? No. Is it best practice? The OCD in me would say yes, because you're trying to standardize based on the actual structure of the project. Because it makes no sense to me to have UI front end and it would be empty. There's nothing in there because all of your client libs are essentially still the components. It's not intuitive. And also later on, once you go into, I don't know, single page application, or when you start getting fancy and you need Webpack and everything else, what I've seen is you start diverting. You would actually have 2 different implementations of front end because you have the old and then now the new folks are using UI front end. So again, I wouldn't say it's a necessity for the migration. It's definitely something that I would recommend.
Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty much what I told this client. I was a little bit amazed to see that they were using almost like a 10 or 15 version old archetype. And when we started getting the build errors, we started digging around. We found there's no UI.frontend module. It's like, wait, what archetype is this?
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. No problem. I'll take 5 more minutes and then I'll stop and I'll pass it back to you, Greg. So we're not just answering questions, just to make sure.
Yeah, no,
you don't have anything else. Now, Slack notifications. The best approach that I found with Slack notifications when it comes to deployment or CM builds is to use Adobe I/O, right? Now, Adobe I/O itself will have sort of the flag that something has happened, but you still need a server in between. The best way that I've done it was to use my development author instance and have a servlet in there that does the call. So essentially it receives the notification and it sends it to Slack or Teams. I've done it for both. Needless to say, at the end of the day, you can do whatever, right? I've seen one of the implementations that I've done, they literally had a notification server because they wanted to do it through SMTP. So it depends on where your final destination is. The easiest way that does not require extra infrastructure, though, is to use your AEM instance, right? So the notification will come from Adobe I/O into the servlet of your author instance or your pub. Don't do it on pub, probably do it on author, because you don't want to put any load in there. And then in return, that would be sent out through an SMTP configuration or directly into your Slack using your authentication. And that's it. I know I'm oversimplifying. There's a little bit more involved in there. I'll take this one back as well. So that's for Cam. And I have a couple of pieces of code that I found online, as well as one that I wrote that could help you during that process.
thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I was looking into the IO docs, and suddenly I'm talking to our sysadmin guy about OpenWhisk stuff, and he goes, "This seems too hard. We should probably not do this right now. I'll find out."
No.
Yeah. Okay.
OpenWhisk has a lot to do with if you have your own server now, right? So if you're trying to consume these notifications or deal with Adobe IO, what I did, which is a little bit of a cheat, but it also works fine, is to have Adobe IO send me the notification. I'm not going to go in and pull, it pushes it. So once the deployment is done, whether it's failed or successful, it will send out a request where it goes into AEM, and then I parse whatever I need from that request, and then I send back my own request to, let's say, Slack or Teams or whatever. So there is a way to avoid the OpenWhisk stuff.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. And if you've got anything more to offer on that subject, I would just absorb all of it whenever you got it. Thank you.
No worries. How many minutes do I have? 2 more minutes. Let's see.
This is the kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that you all. I'll give you some time to pick your questions there, Rami. But this is the kind of interaction that we're looking for during those like office hour sessions. But also a lot of that you'll see like that's what I was describing earlier that happens during the summit. And really, it's a lot of times it's a shortcut. A lot of times it's a more creative approach to like doing something that you might not be aware that you're capable of following, and that's what the magic, so to speak, of these office hours is, and like interacting in the community. But by the way, a lot of us, and I see Arun Padidar, like he's very active in the Adobe Experience League here. So thank you, Arun, first of all, and then you'll see a lot of he's a community advisor. You'll see a lot of his answers and interaction in Adobe Experience League. So, all right.
And I have one last comment in the last minute that I have. So I know Rooney answered the next one about the same question. However, I got a message saying, and that was a direct message, so now it'll be public. Everybody will hear it. Core components. This is a very important note because core components, a lot of the times people will say, well, we extended V1. Just keep in mind, when you're thinking of the versioning of core components, there's actually 2 different sets, right? There is Adobe has released core component 2.0.0, right? But within 2.0.0, they have V1, V2, and V3 of the page component. Make sense? So when you're doing your extension, because we're not taking the core component and we're putting it on the page, we're extending the core component and then we're doing our own component on top. So the question essentially is, if we use the latest archetype, suppose that we have one version of the core components that we're using, but then there is a newer one, can they coexist? The short answer is no, they don't coexist, but every time you're upgrading the core components, you're still maintaining the old ones, right? So when you're going from core component 2.0 to 2.0.1, and let's say the page component now went from V2 to V3, V2 still exists. They maintain that code right in there. So you're not losing it. So again, what it goes back to is, what are you extending? Now, that being said, and I've seen this happen in the past, even though it's sheltered, it's not 100% sheltered because you're still using the same Java code in the background. I have seen bugs that happen as you upgrade the core components. My 2 cents is, especially if you're on AEM as a cloud service, when there is an upgrade of core components that's happening, you can't run away from it because it's upgrading your entire SDK. You're no longer in control of what core components comes. It's not like Foundation back in the day where it's in the jar, it's not going to change. As you're going from SDK 1 to SDK 2, the core components upgrade, whether you like it or not, right? You're still extending a V2 instead of a V3, if that makes sense. But also I would still regression test because I have seen cases, at least 2 in 2013, in 2023, where a core component upgrade, even though I was extending an older version, caused it to break. There were minor things, but we had to create tickets and then it was addressed. And now I'm going to be quiet. I will go through the list of the questions as Greg is talking. I'll make sure that it's being put on a sheet and it's being answered as well. So for the folks that haven't answered, sorry.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you, Rami. And it makes these more interactive, so I appreciate it. Yeah, so this is more of like what you would expect to see during each topic sessions that we're doing, a lot more deep dives into those kinds of topics. So yeah, don't be afraid to register for those sessions if you want to get like really cool tips and best practice advice from these AEM champions. I guess I don't have a lot more as far as the agenda is concerned. If any of the Adobe Experience Manager champions that are on the call, if they wanted to mention anything about like the upcoming season, and if they had they wanted to participate with their feedback here about these sessions, feel free to do so. The main point again that I wanted to make is that there's a lot more of us of the Adobe Experience Manager Champions this year. So there's a myriad of topics and discussions that we can have on a lot of different things. And you know, as we all know, documentation is one thing, but talking about you know, solutions and best practices and everyday like practices that we follow is a different thing. So that's why we're trying to do these office hours like at least monthly and cover different topics, so that then we can maybe continue the conversation in Adobe Experience League or in follow-up sessions and topics. Yeah, I don't have much else besides like following up with if you register or if you attend, if you go to the chapters page and register for one of these next events, we're probably going to do Adobe Experience Manager forums. And then we're going to have like a preview of the summit. If we can squeeze in another office hour, it might be on caching and performance, although that's, you know, like it's a pretty intense topic. And then we're going to follow before summit, we're going to follow with like you know, what we're going to be doing during summit, but then a lot of the follow-up sessions are going to be about what we hear in summit during the conversation we have with you, and also what we see in during those sessions. So yeah.
So Greg, is there going to be a list somewhere that we can see ahead of time what all the different topics are? Or is it just kind of seat of your pants, whatever people think they want to talk about?
Yeah, so that's a good idea. We could do that. We could have a list of all the topics that we might schedule. The one thing that gets tricky is like, because we're so many now in different regions, you know, schedules are different, right? So even if we promise something, might not happen. So that's why we don't commit to a session until like we're close, like a week or two before the session.
Yeah, but even just a list of session topics, we won't, you don't have to put like a date to it, but like, let's say we want to talk about how Gen AI is going to work, or how forms, something about forms or whatever, right? Like, just so people know that these are things that we're looking at talking about, so that we can start building up a repository of questions. And then whenever we know when we can do it, then we can publish a date for it. That way we can build some audience for the different sessions.
Yeah, so we can assign, we'll assign the topics to the months, but not necessarily to the date.
Right.
And that way we know what's coming. Yeah, that makes sense. I like it.
Yeah, like themes and and topics. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely something we can do. I think in chapters, I don't know if we can post like a blog or a post where we have all these sessions, but certainly we can have a document out there, writing document with like a list of topics that we're thinking. We'll find a way to communicate that. Yeah. So yeah, unless any other champs.
Hey, Greg.
But hey, Wilson.
Hey, so first of all, for people that are not, this is my third, I think, that I attended. It's impressive, the lack of selfish. Nobody in this group is selfish. I haven't seen a group that know things, that is not afraid to share, thinking like, oh, it's my competition, or I'm trading secrets here, or I'm not gonna tell you. I'm impressed with the amount of knowledge that is shared on those sessions. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Another good opportunity for this is, for example, Cameron just pinged me on LinkedIn and said, hey, you're in Atlanta. So Mary Ellis and I, we put together a user group for Southeast.
that's
So March 6th, we're gonna have the first virtual meeting. But the idea is, and then Cameron's in Atlanta, and I'm sure there's many AEM users in Atlanta. I'm sure that there's others in Nashville. So we're gonna do probably one meeting virtual in March, and then once a quarter we'll be doing either one in Atlanta in person that people can have a face-to-face and like a personal meeting, and one in Nashville. The other thing that I want to say is if you have an opportunity to meet people locally, it's so good. Last week, I was at a Marketo user group, and then it's so good to just broaden your knowledge and know what are the things that you can get the knowledge sharing with all the applications, and how AEM can integrate with or help or learn or do things better with Marketo campaign with analytics. So just use that opportunity. Again, every meeting you go, it's a safe place to ask stupid questions, because there's no such a thing as stupid questions. And even people, and I'm sure that anybody will answer your questions. If you think it's not the appropriate days, we're going to have side conversations, or it may take too long, but don't miss those opportunities, because it's a fantastic chance for you to clarify questions they might have.
100%. Yeah. And Wilson, of course, is an AEM champion in Cox Communications. So it's amazing that you guys are starting a chapter. Rami also promised that he was going to start a chapter. He didn't do it. But yes, that face-to-face communication and troubleshooting is, like that's what we're trying to do on a personal basis here. So just like with the AEM champion, there are a lot of practitioners, AEM practitioners essentially. So it's good to do that. Yeah, and we're looking forward to doing more of those and growing the community and being a lot more interactive. So yeah, a couple of good questions, a few follow-up items here for us. Thanks to all the Adobe Experience Manager champions for their suggestions and their efforts. We're going to definitely find a way to have topics out there for folks to browse and let us know what they want to see more of. Yeah, I don't have anything else. I want to give you 10 minutes back of your time if there's nothing else here. Rami, anything else to add here?
I'm good. I am so thankful for everybody to come on, and honestly, if you have questions, unmute. If you have anything to say, unmute and say it. And if you have a cat going in front of the screen, just introduce the cat.
I was going to suggest
she's got a lot to say. I can't stop her from meowing right now.
Right,
this is this is Spaghetti. This is Spaghetti, a feral cat that I took in like a month ago.
Awesome.
So that's why I sit out here, so she can kind of come up and hang out. So then I guess she loves this. She's a champion already.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I had actually funny story about cats. I had one cat for about 9 years before. Don't ask me why or how, but my wife convinced me to get a second one to keep the first one occupied. Of course, it didn't. They were just both driving us crazy. But what ended up happening after I got the second cat is I got allergic to cats. So I went from having the cat in my lap 24/7 to literally, if a cat passes in front of me, my eyes would go 4 times as big and my nose gets plugged, and imagery you don't want to see in any way, shape, or form. I don't know if that was a funny story, but it's a good way to end this. Any other questions?
That's interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Hey, Greg, I was going to suggest maybe put a poll on your page where people can say which topics they're most interested in.
Yeah.
Discussing, just an idea.
Yes. No, that's certainly something we thought about, like passing it on to folks, to participants, to let us know what they want to hear. Yeah, we'll take that on and we'll find a way to communicate that to folks. We're working on in a parallel universe, we were working on a website for AEM Champions, but that's been going slow because we all have you know, our obviously our real jobs, right? But we'll find a way to communicate that, because we do want the interaction of the community and all your suggestions, which have been great. The other suggestion I would share here is to go to the Adobe Experience League community. There's blogs, discussions, and questions. And if there's anything you want to see there, I would add it in the. There's also an ideas section. I would recommend posting out there, because like, again, as I said, we periodically will look at those and we'll collect all these ideas, and that provides us with an idea of what we want to present in these sessions. But yeah, the more, I guess, the easier way to do this is to, like you said, to share that out in a survey or a document, and have it out there. So we'll figure out a way to do that for everyone. Thank you. Yeah, without you know, like, having anything else to highlight here, we look forward to seeing everyone in the next couple of sessions. Feel free to reach out to us. Like, we provided the link to learn more about us. Reach out to us via LinkedIn, you know, via our chapters page, contact us button, and we'll get back to you for sure. And looking forward to seeing you in one of the next sessions. Thank you for joining this kickoff office hour session. Anyone else? Rami?
Is it time for the pop quiz yet?
Sure.
Yes, right? And I joke, I actually don't have a pop quiz, but in the real office hours. No, I'm good. I don't have anything else. Again, thank you so much for coming.
Cool.
And this recording will be shared with everybody as well.
Yeah, Arun posted the Adobe Experience League community link in the chat, by the way. Yeah, feel free to bookmark that. You'll see us in there. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you in the next office hours. We're probably gonna do 99% certainty that we're gonna do AEM forums, and Angel, who has already participated in the conversation here, is going to be the subject matter expert, so to speak. And Rami, of course. That's how we do it.
Don't throw my name in there. That's for show. That's for show.
If we're doing forums, just some knowledge, since I am one of the AEM champions, my background is completely in forums. That's my bread and butter. I do know sites and assets, but I have a development background and I know the marketing. So bring all of your questions. If you want to know something technical, how AEM forms technically connects to something, or if you want to know from a high level marketing perspective, why would I even use forms, or what's the benefit of using forms instead of sites, or whatever your questions are, I can answer. I don't want to say all of them.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I do have a wide range of knowledge and experience with AEM forms. I've been doing it for almost 9 years now. So bring me your questions. That's
tantalizing. Awesome. We can't wait to expand on that topic next time. Thank you, Angel, and thank you everyone who joined. I hope you have a good rest of the day, and we'll be seeing you in the next couple of sessions. All right.
Bye,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thank you.
Greg, Remy, and all. Yep.